how much of your time when you're at home is spent worrying and thinking about your employees and your team and your problems? Or how much time at their home when they go home, like, is my boss happy with me? Am I successful?
Sure.
And like build the right system in place so that when you go home, you can just be home.
Hi, and welcome to the Flat Bill Investors Podcast. I'm Josh Zaglaski.
And I'm Zach Spencer. Welcome. Hey, Josh, today, once again, feeling blessed to be here, surrounded in the presence of greatness. We've got a 6th generation entrepreneur, which is a crazy thing. A man with a lot of superpowers. We're going to dive into that today. Family man, has got 3 kids and really proud of them, sounds like. We are happy to have Steele Kizerian on the show today. Steele, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you. Let's just dive right into it. Josh and Steele, how do you guys know each other?
We know each other because we met at a couple business networking events. There's a book called Traction out there. And it was funny because I talked to someone.
Floyd Wickman, right?
Yeah.
Gino.
Oh, Gino Wickman.
Yeah.
Gino Wickman.
So that was a Freudian slip. Gino Wickman. Floyd's different.
Even today, I talked to someone today that they had never heard of the book Traction, but yet their company does EOS. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Funny.
I was actually like, are you sure you don't know what Traction is? And you do it. And he knew all about all the different things. He knew about a visionary, integrator, all that stuff. And I was like, but you've never heard of that book. Like people know that book more than Rocket Fuel, which is his second book. And but anyways, I got really engaged when I read that book, Traction, more so because it reminded me of my company, ERC Specialist, with co-founder, my friend, my partner, Justin Atkinson. I read it and my first thought was like, I was the visionary the visionary at the time, and he was the integrator. And then we ended up playing cards about 2-3 months later, and someone brought it up at cards and someone said, have you read that book? And he's like, yeah, I've read that book. Josh, have you read that book? Because that's how I feel like we've had success. And it's very true. And so with that, we were at the very beginning of ERC. Because I wrote that book, I then talked to my partners about having Steele come in, and Steele came in and talked to our company about, helping us with the EOS and stuff, and end up not working out, just full disclosure. But
I'm really upset about it. Yeah. I shouldn't even be here. I'm a little offended.
No, but I've always been a fan of it. But because of that, we've always kept in touch and stuff, and always, and so let's just start there. That's how we know each other, to answer your question.
Yeah.
But at the same token, like, what got you into that, and what did you kind of do before, becoming, what's exactly called?
Implementer, EOS implementer.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I had built up several businesses. So I had an oil and gas company out in West Texas. We built up with my partner, a medical practice. We did house calls. We went and visited them, kind of like the old school style, but it was awesome. Built up a couple construction companies. So roofing, siding, windows. We were residential, commercial, did a lot there. We were multiple locations, multiple states, learned a lot of fun.
You say we a lot. Is that different partners?
Different partners.
Okay.
So, there's some great ones, some traumatic ones,
sure.
But there's different partners, some family, some non-family. I was never the technician expert in the actual business itself. I was always the business of business, the strategy, right? The strategy,
kind of the COO type.
Yeah. COO, ops, vision, kind of that kind of stuff. But I'd never heard of EOS. I was running on SOS, my own Steele's operating system, like figuring it out.
Yeah.
And we did good. I was doing good things, but man, I wish I had it.
Sure.
And someone doing what I do in Houston told me about it. I was like, hey, you should check this out. About, I think 5 years ago.
Okay. Pre-pandemic or?
Yes. Yeah. And he was like,
I like to always gauge it based on the pandemic.
Yeah. You're like, okay, when was
There's
this?
a new timeline. I was
I know.
Seriously.
I do that all the time.
BC-AD, which one?
I know, BC-AD, that's right.
At what point? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you should look into it. And I'm like, I looked into it. I was like, this is so me. It like screams me. Anyone who knows me is like, this is my calling. Like, I love it.
Someone told you about it, or you read the book first?
He told me about it.
Okay.
I read a chapter and I said, I'm in.
Then that's when you're in.
I went through the whole process and then I became an implementer. And it was awesome because I'm like, I don't have any bad partners. I don't have employees. It's me.
And I know the answer to this, but tell the audience, like, what exactly is that implementer EOS? Like, what's the training for that?
What does EOS even stand for?
Oh,
Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Okay.
And then what's your real question?
You can't just like say, I'm an implementer EOS person.
No,
like,
you
what
have
do you
to go through a whole process. So they vet on their end. Like they made it a licensing franchise model.
Okay.
So you have to go through their vetting process to make sure, because they just want a bunch of people doing EOS for companies as like theory. They want people who've built businesses, who know what it's like to
Yeah.
not pay yourself for 9 months, or what it's like
For
to
sure.
grind and all that.
Or
fun.
10 months.
Or 10 months. Yeah.
Long time.
Are we doing one up?
There you go.
No, it was 11.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you go through that process, and then they have their certification and their boot camp type stuff. And then after that, you hit the ground running.
Yeah, I mean, being here in Utah, I'm sure you probably know who they are or whatever. But at the time when you and I were talking about it, I think there was only a couple.
Yeah,
there's
only a few.
Is there still a few, or is there more?
It's gotten more. There's more now. Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, and the thing with Utah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and new businesses, a lot of startups, with Silicon Slopes and stuff. So
Totally.
yeah, I can see why there'd be a lot more than when you and I talked a few years ago.
I just read a thing, and there's like hundreds of thousands of companies who are in my target market.
Yeah.
So it's like there's plenty of businesses here who would benefit. Every business would benefit. Like, even take me out, just read the stinking book and do it. Like, something's better than nothing.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. When he introduced you, and actually there's one you were kind of talking about before, kind of in what I call our green room time before we start. What was the red flag for me was when you talked about your 6th generation entrepreneur.
I know, that's crazy.
And I thought that was pretty cool because I think I went right to my lineage on both sides, my mom and dad. And there's only 1 or 2 out of, let's just say 6 levels deep that were entrepreneurs. Like my grandpa on my dad's side, landscaper, had his own nursery eventually. And then all my aunts, which I had 3 aunts on that side and 1 uncle, and my dad didn't want the business. So then it just kind of got sold and, all that stuff. And he had a 4-plex. He lived in the 4-plex, all that stuff.
He's house hacking.
Yeah. Yeah. But not a lot of entrepreneurs. And that's pretty cool that you've gone that far down to see like who was a company person versus entrepreneur.
I mean, it kind of goes to show you talk about having a high pain threshold. It's in your blood. You know what it takes.
I know what it takes to be resilient, because you all know it's not like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And I was doing a training this morning to a group of like 10, 15 like business owners. And like, people have the ego of like, I'm a founder. And I'm like, it means nothing. Like, you've got to go through the grind to have resilience and keep going when I always joke around. I'm like, you're an entrepreneur if within the same day you say, this is incredible, I'm going places, this place is amazing. And like 20 minutes later, you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm throwing away all my hopes and dreams. Like, seriously, it's not happening. And then like an hour later, you're like, this is the best thing ever. It's like that roller coaster.
Yeah, the roller coaster is not for the faint of heart. It is a real thing.
Yeah, I got so many stories with that. Even from having the success to, there was a point that there was news articles, national newspapers that were wanting to post things about us. We were having all this success, and then there was times I couldn't sleep at night because of it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question in regards to that. And it reminds me of my own kids. Is there a time when you were a kid, because obviously your dad was some sort of entrepreneur, that you remember like, oh man, that was terrible times. That was so bad. My dad or your mom, whoever's entrepreneur, was pushing through because, and I'll preempt the question. My son talks about it to this day when he was at school, in elementary school, and kids were like, are you guys moving? And he was like, no. Oh, my parents said you're moving. Well, what they're talking about is we had a foreclosure notice on our door. So I've gone down to the bottom of the bottom. So, and I say that because we as entrepreneurs just continue to push through. Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. The glass is half full. Glass is half full. So is there any stories that you remember when you're a kid?
I can't think of anything in particular. I just remember, as I think my dad's company, they had thousands of employees. They were in multiple countries. They built up a large business. I remember he had to be gone a ton. And that was the hard part as a kid. Like,
exactly,
gone as a ton. I'm actually home. EOS provides a great way for me to still have like the EOS life, which is do what you love with people you love, making a huge impact, being compensated appropriately with time for your passions.
Yeah, those are 5 great points.
Yeah. So like those are 5 things I haven't. Most business owners I work with, they don't have that last one for the most part. And then some of those other ones they don't, because they don't have time. Yeah. They're wearing all these different hats and they're drowning, and it's not sustainable, but and I always say, hey, what relationship are you sacrificing right now in the name of that relationship?
Yeah, that's 100%.
And they're always like, they go immediately think about like their kids. They think about, for their older, their grandkids. They think about that impact. And I'm like, the EOS life allows you to have a successful, massively successful business and still put time into your family, into relationships. And I joke because my daughter is like, she's like, you're gone all the time. Like, honey,
You're like,
I am home
You're like,
more than 99% of fathers in the world. They're like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like, they just want our time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with my profession per se is I travel quite a bit, and the one thing that's kind of helped me and my wife, and it's not roses all the time, but what's helped us is just communicating every week. We call our business meeting.
Yeah.
Like we had ours yesterday. And even on Friday, I said, hey, I need to add this to our agenda and stuff. And already she was like rolling her eyes like, oh, what's you going to tell me? But then talking about it yesterday, it was very understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
page,
definitely
like the visionary integrator, same page meeting.
for sure.
You and your wife getting aligned.
Yeah.
Be clear.
And
Yeah,
that is one thing I've noticed too, even like looking at you or even my life, I travel a little bit for work, and that when you're home, you can be present.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that, for the last little bit, I feel like
I used to not do that.
Well, yeah. And like you say, how you watch your kids want that time.
Yeah.
Or if there's a time that as a kid, you saw your parents and you were like, well, Harper the other day was kind of watching Amber and I work, and, we were either fighting or not, but at a moment whether we were working, and she was like, I don't know if I ever want to own a company.
Yeah. My daughter
And
said that too.
she said that to Amber, and I was
I'm not
like,
going to marry an entrepreneur. I'm like,
yeah,
no,
and
I
I
don't understand.
and I kind of
So
was like,
funny.
man, it kind of took a little wind out of my sails, and I was like, okay, we need to make sure that when we're home and they're home, we do compartmentalize a little bit of the business, because it's nice for them to see it, but maybe with a little bit of some shutters on there.
Yeah. And I always think about it. I tell a lot of times as I'm working with these clients, I'm like, listen, how much of your time when you're at home is spent worrying and thinking about your employees and your team and your problems?
Mm-hmm.
Or how much time at their home when they go home, like, is my boss happy with me? Am I successful?
Sure.
And like build the right system in place so that when you go home, you can just be home
Mm-hmm.
and you're not wasting time on that, and just be present.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question, because I mean, you can tell you've got a lot of experience with companies, with running companies, owning them, and being part of them. Tell me about a time that there wasn't all roses. What's kind of a bad beat? I'm sure.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, seriously. Tell me about a bad beat, because you seem like a guy who is resilient. You've come back from that. And I think if I'm listening to this episode right now, I'd want to go, okay, you look at you and you go, hey, he's doing great. But was there a time that you weren't, and how'd you get over that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's hear one. Just one.
I've worked through these traumas.
Before you answer that too, I mean, since I've known Steele as well, and you kind of being a fellow entrepreneur, you kind of see other people's what I call thick candy shell,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like when people talk about stress, and you're like, well, okay. I mean, I've gone through a lot more than this. Like when I talk about having a foreclosure notice, it's like I've gone through a ringer.
Yeah.
And it's been worse even that. So I used to even say back then, is like the only way I can go is up.
That's right.
it.
I have no option.
Yeah.
I mean, I became an entrepreneur because of a massive life shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my wife, and she had extreme health issues for 10 years.
Oh, shoot.
And so I was like, in the mental health space, like really struggling, and like massive, like panic attacks, hyperventilating, like crippling anxiety. She would
And
sleep.
panic attacks they're real.
She would be in her closet, and she'd be sleeping all night, but wake up and need 5 naps a day with a ton of caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
just exhausted.
working.
Yeah.
And so she had like 13, 14 diagnoses of what she had wrong, and like suicide ideation, suicide attempts, like tons of like heavy, big stuff. And I'm like, I had to be an entrepreneur in the first place, because if I had a regular job, I couldn't drop everything and go, I got to take the kids. You got this. I'd call people in my neighborhood. Like, I need you to take him. I need you to do this. And like, I'd have to get everyone's help to do that. I mean, that's just on a personal side. And then business, man, I mean, I'm thinking about like, there's so many, I'll just pick one. Like I was in the middle of one of our largest projects, and I had some partner issues. And I had one partner who was starting to do things that made me really uncomfortable, like liability, risk. And I'm like, hey man, like we can't do that. Yeah. Right. And then, so we ended up breaking up because of it, because I'm like, I'm not going to risk my family. So then I started another one from scratch, got a different business partner. We were building this up, and they were in the largest project we have ever had, like in the history of the company. And I'm not technical. Like, I don't know. Like, I shake when I get on a ladder. Like, and I owned a roofing company. But like, he ended up one day just walked in the middle of the project, said, hey, I'm out. I'm getting a divorce, and I'm leaving. And I'm like in the middle of the project. The homeowner's ticked. Yeah. And it was so tough because I didn't know what to do. I wasn't the technical one. I wasn't great at like the widget. I was great at the business and the growth. And so like all this great growth we had, it we ended up having to like close up shop because I had to do it. It was just really tough because we were super successful, like multiple locations, but it was just a tough time.
And honestly, when audience hears this as well, that to this story, like, and to kind of pat EOS on the back as well, like that's the reason why you have EOS, is it's supposed to replace every person,
Yeah.
you know, that, you know, and so that's to that
I
point.
was dependent on him.
Right.
Like, and it was a horrible spot to be in. I was
Yeah.
dependent. EOS meant so that we build a business that's not owner dependent and
Yeah.
not key leadership dependent. We are constantly training people to build up their replacements.
What would you say? Number one, I got two questions actually. First question is, majority of people that you're meeting with, is it like 1 to, or let's just say 5 to 50 employees, or 50 to 150? That's question one. Question two behind that is, what would you say working with them, would you say your superpower is when you're working with them to help them see what they're not seeing as far as a business?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm working with companies that they've got 5 employees up to a couple hundred, right?
Okay.
Like it's the big spectrum. I've got clients that are low 7 figures. I've got those that are healthy 8 figures. I got 9-figure clients. So like I've got the whole spectrum. It works for anyone. It really does. Superpower is, and I love what you just said, is like helping them see what they don't see.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Because I'm a third party, I'm not in it. I have no skin in the game. It doesn't matter what, I don't need to know their widget. I have some clients still that I don't know what they do. I don't understand it. I don't have to. I'm like, it's okay.
That's cool.
But like being able to say, getting them to finally in a setting, open up in ways they've never opened up, saying things that they have just held in and festered for 15, 20 years in partners or in groups. And finally, you're going to enter the danger, cut the fat, and get them to say it in an open and honest way where it's safe. And where all of a sudden, and then everyone's nervous. I love when it's the first time someone is finally saying what they really think.
You look
They're
around
nervous. And they're you can hear it in their voice. They're like, because I see it. I go, because I see everything. I see their body language. I'm like, Sarah, what are you thinking right now? Oh no, I'm fine. No, come on. You just shifted and you rolled your eyes a little bit. What's going on? Well, I come on, hold on. Tom, who's the founder, owner, can Sarah be open and honest? Yeah. Are you okay? Can she challenge you? Or do you just want a bunch of people who just say whatever you want? Like, what do you want? Be honest.
Yeah.
No, I want them to say, are you sure? Okay, great. Sarah, what are you really thinking? And she says, like in her voice, she finally says it. And just pause and go, hold on. That took a lot of courage. Way to go. Like, how did that feel? And she's like, I felt pretty good. And I'm like, notice Tom. Hey, shout out to Tom. Tom, you didn't get defensive. You weren't angry. She just totally called you out. And what you're doing was actually not the best thing.
Yeah.
And Tom, your response was, thank you for sharing that. And getting Tom to, now it creates this culture where we can start to finally say what we really think.
Yeah, that's cool.
So to that point, like using that same example of Tom, what was the girl's name?
Susie.
Susie, I forgot your
I
name.
forgot
I just remember Tom.
It was
Usually
Sarah.
Sarah. I'm
Does-
like usually
does this-
Sarah, Tom, and Bill.
I actually know Sarah and Tom, and they're listening right now.
Okay, yeah, that's sorry.
Sarah, I'll say Sarah. Does ever Sarah say, well, Tom, the founder, thinks he's an operator, but he doesn't do operations. And do you ever come in and say, guys, we need to hire an operator, and a guy that knows operations? Or do you ever actually suggest other?
Like, are you diagnosing and giving?
No, so I'm not a consultant.
Okay.
Consultant's going to diagnose, say, here's all the things you need to do. I am a trainer, facilitator. 85% is facilitating. It's in the room. They already know it. And by calling it out and training on the context of the principles, pulling it out, we'll say, all right, everyone, let's create the accountability chart. We do the whole structure of it, build it out. And then we go, who's the best person in this seat? And visionary is usually Tom. Everyone's like, yeah, that's Tom because he's all over the place. He's scattered. He's got a lot of ideas, 20 ideas, 18 are horrible. One's okay. One's genius. We need someone to filter. We go, integrator. Who's the best person to fill that seat? Do you think anyone in the room says Tom? No. I don't have to say it.
Yeah.
It's already there.
And that's just so the audience knows too, like we just talked about traction. The second book is Rocket Fuel that we talked about, that talks about having your company should have a visionary and integrator.
The integrator is running the whole company. They're the decision maker. They're making the calls. They are in the trenches. They're the conductor for the symphony. As everyone's doing, they're just making sure everything's going. And the visionary can't come in and hijack and take over the meeting or do this. Well, we're going to do this now. We're going to do that. And I'm like, people don't want it. Hey, no, visionary, you go do visionary things. We've got it. And like helping them see that I don't have to tell Tom. Tom knows in his heart, deep down, he's not great at it. He might think he is. he's not. And
or
the
feel like he's
team
got to
knows.
put that mask on and
Yeah.
pretend like he is, even though he's
Yeah.
not. I'm saying that as I'm thinking about my own company. I go, okay,
Yeah.
I'm listening to you going, okay, we're talking after because I definitely know there's room for that inside of my own company.
Absolutely.
Well, I've
The more
always
we
been-
can free Tom, the better, because it'll do more for the company. I talked to a guy today. I'll let you go. I talked to a guy today, and I'm like, what percent of your day is in the visionary seat? I had him break it down, all the seats he was in. And he's like, well, I'm 10% in sales. I'm 5% the visionary, and I'm scattered all throughout here. And I'm like, what would happen to your company if you were 30% of your time in sales? What would happen to your company if you had the right people in right seats who got it? They can knock it out of the park, and you're just visionary. What would happen? 100% of your time being visionary, which is like big ideas, culture, big relationships, acquisitions, R&D. And he was like,
Which ironically is going to be the thing that makes him the happiest.
he's
anyway.
happy, he's energized.
Yeah.
He's not great at this stuff, man. I'm telling you, he was like, it just was eye-opening for him to go, I'm in my own way. Like, what am I doing? You're thinking too small.
Yeah.
You're trying to control. Let go. The
Mhm.
team's got it.
Yeah.
You go do this, and you'll be better for the company if you do that.
Yeah.
Well, the audience knows I'm a big, and my friends know that I'm a big proponent on That Built series. And there's one called Disney That Built America
Yeah.
that talks about Walt Disney
The
and
Roy.
Roy Disney.
You
And
can't have Walt without Roy.
Yeah, even though the company's called Walt Disney, company,
Roy
Walt Disney,
was-
but
He was
Roy
the
ran it.
integrator.
Yeah.
He ran it. And so when you actually watch that series, which is about 6 to 8 episodes, and I highly suggest people to watch it, you'll see how Disney was successful
Mhm.
because you can see where Walt came in and he came out. And Walt and a lot of employees would always say to testimonials like, we knew Roy, but we barely saw Walt.
Yeah. And I
Because
would
he came
say,
in
like,
different places.
And that's because the visionaries need to be free. A
Mhm.
tightly scheduled visionary is a bad visionary. They need to be golfing. They need to be out and about because that's where their ideas come, not when they're like rigid on a computer in a desk.
Yeah. So earlier, those are all great notes. And honestly, if you're listening, I'm going to re-listen to this one because I'm like, okay, I need to take some notes. Earlier, you mentioned that one of your goals in life is to leave a lasting legacy. And kind of as we wrap up, I just want to ask you what that means to you to leave a lasting legacy and your maybe a couple thoughts on that real quick.
Oh, yeah. I am on this kick right now. I talk about my clients all the time. Business is business. Like, we got to build a great business, but for what? Like, to what end? It's bigger than money, and it's about our family. And a lot of times people think legacy is money. I talk to a lot of people, they think it's like, well, once I have my big exit, then I'm going to leave this big lasting legacy like the Rockefellers, and we're going to have all this stuff. And I'm like, I've been to a lot of funerals lately, and I've been paying attention to what people are saying. And I guarantee you, I've never been to a funeral like, oh, well, his clients said this about him, and his employees, they talked about this, and here's what he did on a day-to-day. They don't care. Nobody cares.
What's being said that sticks
They're
out to you?
talking about what he did, like how he touched lives.
Yeah.
It's your impact on not just your kids, but your grandkids, like an intentional generational impact of your time and creating memories together. That's, to me, I'm like, it's memories. What are they going to say when I die? Is it like, oh, he was a great EOS implementer? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, no, my dad was there. Like, we did stuff together. We bonded. Like, we run our family on EOS, and we are intentional about what we're doing to build this lasting legacy of. We're intentional with our family core values and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
if that doesn't light a little fire in the seat of all of us in this room,
kidding.
I don't know what will. But still, it's been amazing chatting with you, and honestly, I feel inspired after this, and I want to appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
thanks,
much.
Steele.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. So how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me obviously LinkedIn, Steele Kizerian. You can find me on my website, www.eosworldwide.com/Steele, STEELE. Hyphen Kizerian, Kizerian.
We will put the links.
We'll have links
Find me on
below.
LinkedIn. You're good.
Yeah, we'll make sure we put links below. So make sure you look below.
I'm like, well,
Love it.
you can
Okay.
cut that out if you want.
No, keeping it in. We like that.
Well, awesome.
So-
Well, appreciate you coming on, like
Thanks,
Zach said. And until next time, invest in your future.
Invest in yourself.
This is the Flat Bill Investors Podcast signing off.